In Guatemala, I had a cat named Menino. It was a great cat, my first cat. Next door, our neighbor had a cat that looked just similar as mine. And so every afternoon, the two of them would go out and, just play with each other. But there was one day that my neighbor came up to my mom and said, your cat is actually going to my house and eating the cookies and whatever he finds in there. And I said, well, that's impossible. I don't think that's my cat. I think it's your cat doing that. But she said, no, I think it's your cat. And she went on to say, well, next time he does that, I'm going to kill your cat. And I was pretty sure that it was not my cat. So I said, well, go ahead and do what you think is best. And so she did. She actually killed her own cat without her knowing, that it was actually her cat. I think in today's readings, Jesus is the readings are reminding us about that particular message of what happened, what went on in this neighbor's mind when she killed her own cat. We see in the first readings that the message is being given to the prophets. But that wasn't enough. The message then was passed on given to us by Jesus himself. And I think that message for us today is the change of heart. Repent and believe in the gospel. And I don't think this passage is only trying to get at our own vocation to respond to God's message in our lives. I think it goes beyond that. Whether we choose religious life or married life or single life, the message is deeper than that. It's the metanoia, the change of heart, going deeper, to think the way we do things and try to see them differently. I think that is what Jesus is trying his disciples, or his to be disciples. Because in the Gospel of Mark, we notice that Jesus is beginning to call disciples to follow him. And so I think the message that we can get from the readings today for us is, how am I reacting to life? How am I reacting to things? Is it the way that normal people think, and if you hit me, I'll hit you back. If I give you something, I'm expecting something back from that person? Or is it more about doing things differently? All throughout the Gospels, that's basically what Jesus is trying to teach his disciples. He's trying to teach us as well, that if your brother asks for your tunic, give it to him. If he asks you to walk the extra mile, do it. And I know that is not easy to do. And I think that's the reason Jesus himself, the Son of God, comes into the world and tries to show us that we can be able to do this. But we need to rely on God and not ourselves to be able to do this, to be able to walk the extra mile for our brother and sister. Because it's not difficult. Because it is difficult, I should say. And I think that is why we gather here today, to ask God for forgiveness, to ask God to nourish us in the banquet of the Eucharist that we are about to celebrate, so that we may continue to think not as this neighbor in Guatemala used to think about doing things, but more about compassion, more about forgiveness, more about, is this really my cat that is actually doing this? In the end, my neighbor came up to us and she actually apologized for having said what she said. And we can see that in this example that she had a change of heart, the way she started to look at things. And so as we continue this year, as we begin this year, let us make that one of our goals, to ask God to help us through His grace, through the nourishment of the Eucharist, that we may be able to begin once again to think about and reflect the way we do things, and ask God's grace to help us to do that with care, with love, and kindness for one another.